J.D. of Salinger, The Catcher in the Rye. Dive into the turbulent yet enlightening journey of Holden Caulfield, the protagonist of J.D. Salinger's The Catcher in the Rye. This summary transports you into Holden's complex world as he grapples with adolescence, alienation, and the struggle to preserve innocence in a world teeming with phoniness. Expect to explore themes such as identity crisis and the quest for meaning, all through Holden's skeptical yet deeply reflective viewpoint. From his expulsion from another prep school to the profound encounters with family, old friends, and strangers over a weekend in New York, this summary encapsulates the essence of a narrative that has resonated with generations. Get ready to navigate through the subtle layers of teenage angst and the desperate need for connection that make this novel a timeless reflection on youth and society.
Holden's impulsive escape. Up on the hill, Holden Caulfield looks out over his school's stadium, feeling disconnected and already mentally distant. Once again, he's been expelled, this time from his fourth school, and now must prepare to break this news to his unsuspecting parents in New York. But before heading home, saying goodbyes is the immediate task at hand, starting with a visit to his history teacher, Mr. Spencer. The kindly old man, bedridden with the flu, offers a warm welcome that quickly turns into an uncomfortable lecture about Holden's academic failures. Embarrassingly, Spencer even reads aloud a note Holden had written on a blundering essay about Egyptians, only intensifying Holden's urge to escape. Back in his dorm room, Holden's night takes another turn. His roommate, the charming but aloof Stradlater, mentions a date with a girl, Jane or Jean Gallagher, someone Holden knows well. Memories of summers playing checkers with Jane flood back, especially her quirky habit of lining up all her kings. Stradlater, seemingly indifferent, can't even recall her name correctly, which irks Holden. To keep himself occupied, Holden writes an English composition for Stradlater. The composition, focused on a deeply personal topic, his late brother Ali's baseball mitt, serves as a poignant reminder of Holden's cherished memories. When Stradlater returns, Holden's curiosity about the date reaches a fervor. His relentless questioning about Jane hits a wall of tight-lipped responses, aggravating his anxiety. Tensions escalate, leading Holden to anticipate a full-blown fight with Stradlater. Realizing he's hit his breaking point, Holden decides to abandon the school for good. For more days within its confining walls are unbearable, and he impulsively plans a chaotic escape to New York. Financially prepared, he plans to stay in a hotel until Wednesday, his intended day of return. Selling his typewriter for $20 adds to his pocket money, enabling his sudden departure. Rushed but resolute, Holden leaves the dorm after sparking chaos with a parting shout intended to rouse the entire floor. This defiant gesture punctuates his decision, marking the first step in a reckless journey into the city, free from the constraints of his current life's disappointments and complexities. Leaping headlong into uncertainty, Holden's impulsive departure is more than an escape, it's a bid to reclaim some semblance of control over his tumultuous young life. Holden's disenchanted night. On a Saturday night, Holden Caulfield finds himself in the less-than-glamorous Edmont Hotel in New York. From his shabby room, he observes the bizarre antics of his fellow guests with a mix of disdain and a sense of superiority, convinced that he's the only normal person in sight. Though tempted to reach out to his beloved younger sister, Phoebe, he refrains, fearing his parents might answer the call. Instead, he descends to the hotel's bar, where a lackluster band plays for an equally insincere crowd. There, Holden meets three women, engages in some lackluster conversation, and dances awkwardly, restricted to drinking Coca-Cola after the waiter identifies him as a minor. His company departs, sticking him with the bill without a second thought. As he wanders through the lobby, Holden's thoughts linger nostalgically on Jane Gallagher, an old friend he treasures. Memories of golf games and showing her a cherished baseball glove stir in him a tender longing. They once shared a near kiss, not quite on the lips, a memory both innocent and significant to Holden. With restless energy, he decides to visit Ernie's, a nightclub he used to frequent with his brother DB before Hollywood lured him away to scriptwriting. Dismayed, Holden watches the patrons idolize Ernie, the pianist, whose performance Holden sees as nothing more than an ostentatious display for the credulous crowd. There, he runs into Lillian, a former flame of DB's whose transparent phoniness repels him. Avoiding any prolonged engagement, Holden makes a hasty exit, leaving his drink behind. Back at the hotel, an encounter with the elevator operator leads to an unexpected proposition for companionship. Filled with melancholy, Holden agrees to hire a young prostitute who appears close to his age. Despite her advances, he feels a profound sadness rather than attraction and tries to strike up a conversation instead. Her perplexed reaction soon shifts to irritation, especially when Holden insists on paying the agreed $5, though she demands $10. The terse exchange ends unhappily, with the girl leaving in frustration. Before long, the elevator operator returns with the girl, insisting on the extra money. Holden's refusal results in a violent altercation, leaving him bruised and short $5. This encounter punctuates Holden's struggle to reconcile his desire for connection with his deep-seated disdain for the pretentious people surrounding him. Restless Wanderings. Holden finds himself wide awake on Sunday morning, feeling exhausted and famished from the whirlwind events of the night before. Despite this, he avoids calling room service, wary of encountering the guy who beat him up. With a penchant for impromptu decisions, he arranges an afternoon date with Sally Hayes, a girl he isn't truly fond of, but familiar with in a comfortable, if superficial, way. To bide his time before their meet-up, Holden decides to flee the uncomfortable confines of his hotel, safeguarding his bags at Grand Central Station and opting for a modest breakfast at a sandwich bar. Here, he encounters two nuns and engages in an unexpectedly meaningful conversation. The talk turns to literature, and Holden shares his candid thoughts on Romeo and Juliet, finding some aspects irksome. Despite feeling awkward about discussing such topics with a nun, he gains a sense of connection, although he regrets not giving them more than a humble $10. Determined to bring joy to his sister Phoebe, Holden visits a record store in search of the rare Little Shirley Beans record. Believing it a perfect gift, he hurries to her favorite park, only to be met with disappointment when she isn't there. Nearby looms the museum he adored as a child, the exhibit's unchanging nature used to comfort him amidst his own ever-evolving world. Yet, Holden decides against revisiting the place, as the static environment no longer appeals to him. Returning to town, he meets Sally for their date. Although he finds her appearance captivating, the show they attend seems as superficial as their conversation. In a bid for genuine connection, Holden suggests skating, which allows him to delve into his pent-up frustrations about the world. He candidly shares his dislike for school, chaotic city life, and insincere spectacles, even fantasizing about escaping to New England for a simpler life. However, Sally finds his ideas impractical and accuses him of shouting, despite his intense sincerity. In the end, their paths diverge. In this moment of raw emotion and confusion, Holden's outburst feels both cathartic and puzzling, leaving him to ponder the reasons behind his impulsive declarations. Nighttime Reflections. As Sunday evening unfolds, Holden Caulfield finds himself alone with his thoughts, leafing through his address book. Jane crosses his mind, but he can't reach her. Opting instead for a meeting with Carl Luce, a Columbia student known for his intellect and experience with women, they decide to meet for drinks later. Killing time, Holden reluctantly sits through a lackluster war movie, which rekindles memories of his brother D.B., who traded army boots for Hollywood scripts. War, bombs, and youthful bravado mix in Holden's musings as he reflects on his own hypothetical enlistment. At the bar, Holden arrives early and orders a drink, leveraging his height to obtain service despite his age. Already tipsy when Carl arrives, Holden's jesting isn't well received. Despite Carl's hope for a serious discussion, their exchange centers awkwardly on Carl's personal life. Holden's relentless probing leads to Carl's uneasy departure, suggesting Holden seek professional help, leaving Holden alone with his drink and his spiraling thoughts. Past midnight, Holden's solitude drives him to call Sally. Her advice is simple: go to bed, but Holden's rest will not come easily. Instead, he splashes cold water onto his face, attempting to sober up, yet finds himself overtaken by inexplicable tears. The coat-check girl, a reassuring presence, is kind despite Holden's inability to locate his ticket, but declines his feeble invitation for a date. Stepping into the night, the brisk air revives him, propelling Holden toward Central Park. There, he clumsily shatters Phoebe's cherished record, gathering its shards with a sense of remorse. Shivering, he hunkers down on a bench, haunted by visions of Allie's funeral, which his hospital stay kept him from attending. Holden's hand aches, a lingering reminder of his grief and self-destruction. Thoughts of mortality swarm as he imagines the insincerity of mourners at his own funeral. Resolved and penniless, Holden treads the New York streets toward home, burdened with the weight of broken relationships and fractured peace. Catching in the Rye. On a quiet Sunday evening, Holden slips into his family apartment with one goal: see his sister, Phoebe. She's thrilled to see him, but the joy doesn't last. Questions arise about his early return, and honesty forces him to admit he's left yet another school. Phoebe, sharp and unyielding, demands answers. What does he like, she challenges. Holden can only muster Allie, his deceased brother, leaving Phoebe unsatisfied. She pushes further, asking what he intends to do with his life. A whimsical idea surfaces in Holden's mind: he dreams of standing in a rye field, catching children before they tumble off a cliff. Phoebe corrects him, pointing out the song isn't quite what he imagines, but Holden clings to his dream. Unable to linger, Holden reaches out to a trusted former teacher, Mr. Antolini, who invites him to stay. With parents returning home, Holden hides in the closet, finally emerging to reluctantly accept Phoebe's Christmas money. Taking a cab to Antolini's, he's met with a warm welcome but also caution, a warning that his disinterest in life could lead to a grim future if unchanged. Exhausted, Holden listens, nods, and soon falls asleep on the couch. But the night takes an uncomfortable turn when he awakens to Antolini's unexpected touch. Disturbed, Holden leaves swiftly, retreating to the solitude of Grand Central's waiting room, wrestling with the unsettling events of the night as Monday dawns. One last glance. Is there any truth to what happened, or has it all just been misunderstood? Even as these thoughts swirl, he strolls down Fifth Avenue, imagining conversations with Allie. His mind races with plans to escape, to say goodbye to Phoebe, return her money, and set off for a fresh start in the West. There, a quieter life in a filling station awaits, a life where he pretends to be deaf-mute to avoid needless chatter, even dreaming of marrying a deaf-mute girl to share silent conversations. With a note left at Phoebe's school arranging a meeting at the museum, he waits. Phoebe's unexpected arrival, towing his old suitcase, eager to join his adventure, tugs at his heart. Gently, he explains the impossibility, easing her anger with a trip to the zoo, then the carousel. Watching her joyful ride amidst the rain, despite soaking through, evokes a stirring contentment in him, bringing tears to his eyes. Now, months later in a facility, there's a sliver of hope. A new school beckons in September, and with it, the possibility of trying harder. Yet, the future remains uncertain. It's something he'll discover when he steps into it.
As Holden Caulfield's story draws to a close, we come away with an evocative portrait of a young man on the cusp of adulthood, wrestling with profound loneliness and confusion. Salinger's narrative underscores the pervasive theme of isolation juxtaposed with an insatiable longing for authenticity and human connection. Through his encounters with various characters, Holden's interactions illustrate the novel's critical view on societal expectations and the preservation of innocence amidst corruption. In a poignant realization, Holden's vision of being the catcher in the rye embodies his desire to shield others from the harsh realities he faces. This summary ultimately reveals how Holden's experiences mirror universal struggles of finding one's place and identity within an ever-changing world, leaving readers to ponder whether true peace is attainable or just an illusion of fleeting youth.